The message arrived at the Galactic Council headquarters on a quiet Tuesday morning. The communication came through the standard diplomatic channels, but everything about it was wrong. First, it was from humans. Second, it was not asking for help or protection. Third, it was demanding an audience with the full council assembly. Councillor Velthara of the Vorthak read the message 3 times before she understood what she was looking at. Her crystalline body sparkled with confusion as she processed the words. In 40,000 years of galactic history, no new species had ever made such a request. Young civilizations always spent centuries proving themselves worthy before they could even speak to a single council member, let alone address the entire assembly. The message was simple and direct. Ambassador Daewon Kim, representing something, called the United Earth Coalition, formally requested permission to address the Galactic Council within 30 standard days. He claimed to speak for all of humanity and wished to discuss Earth's place in galactic civilization. There was no begging. There was no mention of tribute or service. It read like the humans actually believed they had something important to say. Velthara forwarded the message to the other senior counselors with a note of her own. She suggested they grant the request for entertainment value. It had been decades since they had witnessed a proper humiliation of an upstart species. The newer civilizations needed regular reminders of their place in the galactic order. Counselor Zephron of the Illumani agreed immediately. His energy form pulsed with amusement as he read the human request. The Illumani had been part of the council for 37,000 years. They had seen hundreds of young species make similar mistakes. The humans would stand before the assembly, realize how small and unimportant they were, and then spend the next few centuries learning proper respect for their betters. The third senior member, Councillor Rethmar of the Nexari, processed the request through his machine collective consciousness. The Nexari had been the first species to achieve faster-than-light travel, and they had helped establish the Council's traditions. Rethmar calculated a 97% probability that the humans would follow the standard pattern of new species behavior. They would make grand speeches about their potential, then accept whatever minor role the council offered them. The vote to allow the human address passed without opposition. 847 species agreed to witness what they assumed would be another routine display of young species arrogance, followed by the inevitable acceptance of reality. News of the upcoming human address spread throughout the galactic capital of Ethros Prime. Betting pools opened on how long the human ambassador would speak before breaking down in tears. The Zenthari merchants, with their 4 arms and keen business sense, offered odds on whether the humans would beg for membership or simply ask for protection from hostile neighbors. The massive amphitheater began preparing for the event. Maintenance. Crews cleaned the ancient stone seats that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. The translation matrices were updated to handle human languages, though most species expected the presentation to be brief and unremarkable. On Earth, preparations of a different kind were taking place. Ambassador Daewon Kim stood in the communications center of the United Earth Coalition headquarters, reviewing the final details of humanity's message to the galaxy. Unlike the council members who saw this as entertainment, Daewon understood the true weight of what was about to happen. Admiral So-Ra Park worked in the orbital shipyards above Earth, overseeing the final preparations of what the official records called a diplomatic escort. The 12 ships taking shape in the construction bays looked unremarkable from the outside. They appeared to be standard fusion-powered vessels, the kind that most species used for basic interstellar travel. The truth was far different, but the galaxy would learn that soon enough. Chief Engineer Tae-Min Lee ran diagnostic tests on systems that had no names in any galactic database. For 200 years, humanity had been preparing for this moment. Every piece of technology they had recovered, studied, and improved was now ready for its first real test. Tae-Min's hands moved across control panels that represented the culmination of human engineering and determination. Dr. Young-Soo Han organized the evidence that would support humanity's claims. As the expedition's chief xenoarchaeologist, he had spent decades studying the remains of the first galactic ship to reach Earth. The Vorthak survey vessel had crashed in the Pacific Ocean in 1847, and its recovery had changed human history forever. The galaxy believed first contact had happened only recently. They were wrong about that, just as they were wrong about so many other things. President Hyun-ji Choi reviewed the speech she would give to the council. Every word had been chosen, carefully. The galaxy expected humans to ask for guidance or protection. Instead, they would hear something that no young species had ever said before. They would hear humanity claim its place as an equal among the stars. Back on Ethros Prime, the excitement continued to build. Representatives from species across the galaxy made plans to attend the human address. The Goliath warriors, standing 3 meters tall and covered in natural armor, looked forward to seeing another species learn the reality of galactic power structures. The energy wisps from the distant nebulae civilizations flickered with anticipation as they prepared to witness human embarrassment. The Council's military commanders also made preparations, though they saw no real need for security measures. The humans had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel, according to their records. Their technology was primitive compared to established galactic powers. If the humans tried anything foolish, the defense systems of Ethros Prime could handle a dozen human ships without difficulty. What none of them understood was that humanity had spent 2 centuries learning to be underestimated. While the galaxy saw a young species making a predictable mistake, humans saw the perfect opportunity to reveal truths that would reshape galactic civilization forever. The stage was set for what the galaxy believed would be a routine humiliation of an upstart species. Instead, they were about to witness the end of 40,000 years of established order. The humans were coming to Ethros Prime, and they were bringing more than just words to share with the Galactic Council. In 30 days, the galaxy would learn that humanity had been preparing for this moment longer than anyone imagined. They would discover that first contact had happened much earlier than the official records indicated. Most importantly, they would realize that the species they had dismissed as primitive newcomers had capabilities that would force every established power to reconsider everything they thought they knew about the balance of galactic civilization. The human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel exactly on schedule. 12 vessels emerged from the blue-white flash of transit energy at the edge of the Ethros Prime system. To the watching sensors of the Galactic Council, they looked exactly like what everyone expected. Small, primitive ships using basic fusion drives and simple metal hulls. Admiral So-Ra Park stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, the indomitable Spirit, watching the massive space station that served as the galactic capital grow larger on the main screen. Ethros Prime was truly impressive. The artificial world stretched for thousands of kilometers, its surface covered with gleaming towers and docking bays that could handle ships from hundreds of different species. It was a monument to 40,000 years of galactic cooperation and established order. Soon, that order would change forever. The human diplomatic convoy received standard approach instructions from Ethros Prime Traffic Control. The controller, a Zenthari with 4 arms working multiple communication boards at once, spoke in the bored tone of someone who processed routine arrivals all day. To him, the humans were just another minor species coming to learn their place in the galaxy. President Hyun-ji Choi adjusted her formal diplomatic robes as she reviewed her notes one final time. She had been chosen to lead this mission not because she was the most senior politician on Earth, but because she understood the weight of what they were about to do. Today would either establish humanity as an equal partner in galactic civilization, or it would start a war that would reshape the known universe. Ambassador Dae-Won Kim checked the translation device that would convert his words into the 800 different languages spoken by council members. The device was a gift from the council itself. sent along with their permission to address the assembly. What they did not know was that humanity had been listening to galactic communications for 2 centuries. Day-One could speak 17 galactic languages fluently, but today he would speak only in human languages. Let the galaxy work to understand him for once. In the great amphitheater of Ethros Prime, representatives from across the galaxy took their seats. The massive circular chamber could hold delegations from nearly 1,000 different species, and today it was almost full. Word of the human address had spread, and everyone wanted to witness what they expected would be an entertaining display of young species foolishness. The Vorthak delegation, with their crystalline bodies sparkling in the chamber's light, had taken seats near the front. Counselor Velthara wanted a clear view of the human ambassador's face when reality set in. She had seen dozens of similar presentations over the centuries, and they all followed the same pattern. First came the grand speeches about the new species' potential. Then came the slow realization of how small and unimportant they really were. Finally came the tears and the desperate pleas for any kind of acceptance. The Illumani floated in their designated energy fields, their forms shifting between different colors as they communicated with each other through light patterns. Counselor Zephyron pulsed with anticipation. Energy beings like the Illumani had little use for physical comedy, but they found great entertainment in watching primitive species learn about their limitations. Near the center of the chamber, the Nexari delegation sat in perfect silence. The machine collective had already calculated the probable outcomes of today's events. Their analysis suggested a 96% chance that the humans would accept whatever minor role the council offered them. The remaining 4% covered the possibility that the humans might be too proud to accept reality and would need to be educated through more direct means. As the human ships docked with Ethros Prime, betting reached a fever pitch throughout the station. The Goliath warriors, with their natural love of competition, had wagered their monthly rations on how long the human speech would last. Most bets were under 10 minutes. The energy wisps from the outer nebulae had pooled their resources to bet that the humans would ask for protection from hostile neighbors, the standard request from species that had recently achieved faster-than-light travel. The human delegation made their way through the corridors of Ethros Prime toward the great amphitheater. They walked past representatives from species that had ruled star systems when Earth's sun was still young. They passed beings of pure energy, creatures made of living metal, and gas-based life forms that existed in specially designed atmospheric containers. Some of the watchers pointed at the humans and whispered among themselves. The humans looked so ordinary compared to the exotic species that filled the galactic capital. They were bipedal, carbon-based life forms with no obvious special abilities. They could not change their shape like the Morphic Collective. They could not survive in vacuum like the Silicon Commonwealth. They could not process information at light speed like the Nexari. What could such ordinary beings possibly have to offer galactic civilization? Dr. Young-Soo Han carried a sealed container holding evidence that would answer that question in ways the galaxy was not prepared to hear. Inside were fragments of the Vorthak survey ship that had crashed on Earth in 1847, along with detailed analysis of how humanity had reverse-engineered galactic technology. The galaxy believed they were dealing with a species that had just discovered faster-than-light travel. They were about to learn that humanity had been studying their technology for over 200 years. Chief Engineer Taemin Lee remained aboard. The indomitable spirit, monitoring systems that the docking sensors of Ethros Prime could not properly identify. The human ships registered as primitive fusion-powered vessels, exactly as planned. The real power sources were hidden behind layers of shielding that made them invisible to standard galactic sensors. Let the Council continue to think they were dealing with newcomers who barely understood the basics of space travel. As the time for the address approached, the great amphitheater filled to capacity. Representatives from 847 different species settled into their seats, ready to be entertained by another display of young species arrogance. The betting pools closed with final odds heavily favoring a quick human surrender to galactic reality. Ambassador Daewon Kim walked through the corridors toward the chamber entrance, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Behind him, President Hyunji Choi and Dr. Young-Soo Han followed, carrying with them the words and evidence that would change everything. They passed under the great archway that led into the amphitheater, and the sound hit them like a wave. Laughter. The assembled representatives of galactic civilization were already laughing, and the humans had not even spoken yet. The sound echoed off the ancient stone walls, a mix of different vocal patterns from hundreds of species. Some laughed with vocal cords similar to humans. Others created sounds like musical chimes or electronic static. All of it carried the same message: amusement at what they saw as primitive beings who did not understand their place in the universe. Ambassador Daewon Kim smiled as he heard the laughter. Soon, that laughter would turn to something very different. The galaxy was about to learn that they had made a fundamental error in their assumptions about humanity. They had mistaken preparation for primitive confusion. They had mistaken patience for weakness. Most importantly, they had mistaken humanity's willingness to follow diplomatic protocol for an admission that they needed the galaxy's permission to claim their place among the stars. The show was about to begin, but it would not be the entertainment the galaxy expected. Ambassador Daewon Kim walked to the center of the great amphitheater with steady steps. The laughter from 800 different species echoed around him, but his expression remained calm. He had heard worse sounds during humanity's long preparation for this moment. Behind him, President Hyunji Choi and Dr. Young-Soo Han took their positions at the human delegation's assigned seats. The amphitheater was a sight to behold. Curved rows of seats rose up in all directions, filled with beings that represented the diversity of galactic civilization. Some delegates floated in energy fields. Others required special atmospheric containers to survive. A few were so large they needed reinforced seating, while others were so small they sat in groups on shared platforms. At the highest level of the amphitheater, the three senior counselors watched from their ceremonial thrones. Counselor Velthera's crystalline body caught the light as she leaned forward with interest. Counselor Zephyron pulsed with colors that indicated amusement in Illumani body language. Counselor Rethmar's machine form remained perfectly still, processing data through sensors that monitored every aspect of the human presentation. Daewon reached the central podium and activated the translation system. His voice carried clearly through the vast chamber as he began to speak. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he said, his tone respectful but firm. "I am Ambassador Daewon Kim of the United Earth Coalition. I thank you for granting humanity this opportunity to address your assembly." The laughter began to fade as delegates settled in to hear what they expected would be a standard plea for guidance and protection. Several species had recording devices active, planning to preserve this moment for future entertainment. "We come before you today," Daewon continued, "not as supplicants seeking your approval, but as representatives of a civilization that wishes to establish the terms of our relationship with this council." The laughter stopped entirely. A murmur of confusion rippled through the chamber. Counselor Zephron's energy form flickered with surprise. In 40,000 years of galactic history, no new species had ever spoken such words. Daewon let the silence stretch for a moment before continuing. "I understand this may come as a surprise to some of you. After all, your records indicate that humanity achieved faster-than-light travel only recently. Your intelligence reports suggest we are a primitive species just beginning to understand the complexities of galactic civilization." He paused, and his expression hardened slightly. "Your records are incorrect." Dr. Young-Soo Han stood and approached the podium, carrying the sealed container he had brought from Earth. As the galaxy's leading expert on first contact protocols, he had dreamed of this moment for decades. Today, he would present evidence that would rewrite galactic history. First contact between humanity and galactic civilization, Dr. Young-Soo said as he opened the container, did not occur in the recent past, as your records claim. It occurred on Earth, date July 15, 1847, when a Vorthak survey vessel experienced catastrophic drive failure and crashed in what humans call the Pacific Ocean. He lifted a piece of crystalline debris from the container. Counselor Velthara's body flashed with recognition and alarm. The fragment was definitely Vorthak in origin, and the energy patterns it gave off indicated it was very old. For the past 206 Earth years, Dr. Young-Soo continued, humanity has been studying galactic technology, culture, and military capabilities. We have learned your languages, analyzed your political structures, and reverse-engineered your most advanced systems. The murmur of confusion in the chamber grew louder. Several delegates began urgent communications with their home governments. This was not supposed to happen. New species did not prepare for first contact. They stumbled into galactic civilization and spent centuries learning how to survive in it. Counselor Rethmar's machine voice cut through the noise. Impossible. Our sensors would have detected such activity. No primitive species could hide advanced development from galactic observation networks. Daewon smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. Counselor Rethmar, your observation networks detected exactly what we wanted them to detect. You have been watching humanity for decades, but you have been watching a carefully prepared performance. President Hyun-ji Choi stood and activated a small device she had been carrying. Immediately, the holographic displays throughout the chamber came alive with images from Earth. But these were not the primitive settlements and basic technology that galactic intelligence had reported. These were images of vast underground facilities, orbital construction platforms, and weapons testing ranges that had been hidden from all galactic sensors. While your scouts observed our surface cities and civilian space programs, President Hyun-ji said, humanity's real development took place, in locations you never suspected existed. We learned early that the galaxy judges species by their apparent technological level, so we made sure our apparent level matched your expectations. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates from hundreds of species began shouting questions and demands. How had humanity hidden such development? Why had they concealed their true capabilities? What did they want from the galaxy? Counselor Velthara's voice rang out over the noise, amplified by the chamber's acoustic systems. What is the meaning of this deception? Do you think you can intimidate the Galactic Council with lies and fabricated evidence? Admiral Sora Park's image appeared on the main holographic display, broadcast directly from the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit. Her uniform was crisp and professional, but her eyes held the hardness of someone who had spent a lifetime preparing for war. Counselor Velthara, Admiral Sora said, her voice carrying easily through the chamber. There is no deception here. There is only the revelation of truths you were not prepared to accept. For over 2 centuries, humanity has been asking itself a single question. What would we need to do to survive in a galaxy controlled by species that view newcomers as primitive subjects? She gestured to something off-screen, and new images appeared on the displays. These showed the human escort fleet, but now the sensors were penetrating the disguised outer hulls. Underneath the primitive-looking exteriors were ships that made the Council's defense fleet look like museum pieces. The answer, Admiral Sora continued, was to become strong enough that survival would not depend on your approval. The silence that followed was different from the earlier quiet. This was not the silence of beings waiting to be entertained. This was the silence of beings beginning to understand that everything they thought they knew about the balance of galactic power was wrong. Dr. Young-Soo returned to the podium with additional evidence. Every galactic species follows the same pattern when they achieve faster-than-light travel. They make contact, spend centuries as junior members of galactic civilization, and slowly work their way up to positions of limited authority. This pattern exists because every species believes they have no choice but to accept it. He looked directly at the senior counselors as he spoke his next words. Humanity chose a different path. We chose to arrive as equals. The implications of that statement hit the chamber like a physical blow. If humanity had truly developed in secret for 2 centuries, if their technology was as advanced as they claimed, if their military capabilities matched their apparent confidence, then the established order of galactic civilization was about to face its greatest challenge in 40,000 years. Ambassador Daewon Kim returned to the podium for his closing statement. We come before you today to establish the terms of humanity's relationship with galactic civilization. We do not seek your permission to exist among the stars. We seek your recognition of the reality that we already do. The great amphitheater fell into stunned silence after Ambassador Daewon Kim's declaration. 800 different species tried to process what they had just heard. Humanity was not asking for permission to join galactic civilization. They were announcing their arrival as equals and demanding recognition of that fact. Counselor Velthara was the first to recover from the shock. Her crystalline body flashed with anger as she rose from her ceremonial throne. The Vorthak had been the dominant military power in the galaxy for 15,000 years. No species had ever dared to challenge their authority so directly. "This is an outrage," she declared, her voice amplified throughout the chamber. "You dare come before this council with lies and threats? You think a few fabricated images will convince us that your primitive species poses any real challenge to galactic civilization?" Her words triggered a wave of agreement from the assembled delegates. The Goliath warriors roared their support, their massive forms rising from their reinforced seats. The energy wisps from the outer nebulae flickered with indignation. Even the typically calm Silicon Commonwealth began generating the harmonic frequencies that indicated extreme displeasure. Counselor Velthara continued, her anger growing with each word. For 40,000 years, the Galactic Council has maintained peace and order throughout known space. We have guided younger species and protected them from their own foolishness. We will not allow one delusional species to threaten that stability. She activated the emergency command system built into her throne. Throughout Ethros Prime, ancient defensive systems that had never been used in actual combat began to power up. Massive energy cannons emerged from hidden positions on the station's surface. Shield generators that could protect entire star systems hummed to life. The defense fleet that protected the galactic capital received urgent orders to prepare for possible hostile action. Human delegation, Counselor Velthara announced formally. You will order your ships to withdraw from Ethros Prime space immediately. You will return to your home system and remain there until the Council decides what action to take regarding your deception and threats. If you refuse to comply, you will face the combined might of galactic civilization. The silence that followed was tense and expectant. Every delegate in the chamber waited to see how humanity would respond to the ultimate threat. No species had ever defied a direct order from the senior counselors backed by the full military power of Ethros Prime. The humans would surely recognize their mistake and beg for forgiveness. Ambassador Daewon Kim looked up at Counselor Velthara with an expression of calm disappointment. He touched a small communication device on his collar and spoke a single word in Korean. Sijag. Begin Admiral Sora Park received the signal aboard the Indomitable Spirit with professional satisfaction. For 200 years, humanity had prepared for this exact moment. Every calculation had been made, every system had been tested, every possible response had been planned for. The galaxy was about to learn what human military doctrine really meant. All ships, she announced over the fleet communication network. Demonstration protocol is now active. Execute with precision. Remember, we are not here to destroy, but to educate. Captain Jae Hyun-yoon, commanding the dreadnought Unbroken Dawn, acknowledged the order along with the other 11 ship commanders. Around Ethros Prime, the human escort fleet began to move with purpose that their disguised exteriors had never suggested possible. The first sign that something was wrong came from the Ethros Prime sensor networks. The primitive human ships were moving faster than their supposed fusion drives should allow. More concerning, they were broadcasting targeting information on frequencies that should have been impossible for their technology to access. Chief Engineer Tae-min Lee monitored the demonstration from his position aboard the Indomitable Spirit. Every human ship was performing exactly as designed. The stealth systems that had hidden their true capabilities for decades were finally being deactivated. Weapon systems that had been disguised as simple communication arrays were revealing their true purpose. Drive systems that appeared to be basic fusion engines were showing their real power output. The Ethros Prime Defense Coordinator, a Zenthari with 4 arms working frantically at his control station, watched his displays with growing horror. The 12 human ships were not just moving beyond their supposed capabilities. They were moving with a coordination and precision that suggested military technology centuries ahead of anything in the galactic database. Counselor Rethmar's machine consciousness processed the incoming data and reached a conclusion that his programming said should be impossible. Velthara, he transmitted to his fellow counselor, the human ships are not what they appear to be. Their actual capabilities exceed our initial estimates by several orders of magnitude. Counselor Velthara ignored the warning. The Vorthak had never retreated from a challenge, and they would not start now. All defensive positions, she ordered, target the human vessels and prepare to fire. Show them what happens when primitive species threaten the Galactic Council. The massive energy cannons of Ethros Prime swiveled toward the human fleet. Shield generators powerful enough to stop asteroid impacts came online. The defense fleet moved into attack formation, their weapons charging for what should have been a quick and decisive battle. Admiral Sora Park watched the defensive preparations with the calm attention of someone who had spent decades studying every system now being activated against her fleet. 30 seconds, she announced to her ships. Disable all defensive systems. Full precision. No casualties. What happened next would be remembered throughout galactic history as the shortest war ever fought. In exactly 30 seconds, the human fleet systematically dismantled every defensive system protecting Ethros Prime, but they did not destroy anything. Instead, they surgically disabled each system with precision that should have been impossible. The massive energy cannons found their targeting systems scrambled by electromagnetic pulses so precisely calibrated that they damaged only the guidance, computers. The shield generators shut down when their power cores were drained by energy weapons that somehow extracted power without causing explosions. The defense fleet discovered that their weapons would not fire because their ammunition had been teleported out of their ships by technology the galaxy had never seen before. Captain Jae Hyun-yoon reported from the Unbroken Dawn in the same tone he might use to announce the completion of a routine training exercise. All defensive systems disabled. No casualties, no permanent damage. Demonstration complete. In the great amphitheater, every delegate watched the tactical displays in absolute silence. The impossible had just happened before their eyes. The most powerful defensive system in galactic history had been neutralized in half a minute by 12 ships that were supposed to be primitive fusion-powered vessels. Counselor Velthara stared at her command displays, trying to understand what she was seeing. Every system showed the same impossible result. Her defenses were offline, but her ships and stations were undamaged. The humans had not destroyed Ethros Prime's military power. They had simply turned it off like adults taking toys away from children. Ambassador Day 1. Kim's voice cut through the stunned silence. Counselor Velthara, humanity did not come here to make war on the galaxy. We came here to demonstrate that we are capable of making that choice. The fact that your entire defensive system is intact should tell you something about our intentions." Admiral Sora Park's image reappeared on the main display. "For the record," she said calmly, "our fleet could have destroyed every military asset in this system in the same 30 seconds we used to disable them. We chose not to because our goal is coexistence, not conquest, but let no one in this chamber doubt that the choice was ours to make." Chief Engineer Tae-Min Lee's voice joined the transmission from his engineering station. "The technology you have just witnessed represents 2 centuries of human development driven by a single principle. Never again will humanity's survival depend on the goodwill of others. We learned from your crashed ship not just how to build faster engines and better weapons, but how to build them in ways that would give us advantages you never suspected possible. The galaxy had just learned that humanity possessed military technology that could challenge the established order. More importantly, they had learned that humans were willing to use that technology, but disciplined enough to do so with surgical precision rather than overwhelming destruction. The age of automatic submission to galactic authority had just ended in 30 seconds of impossible military demonstration. The great amphitheater of Ethros Prime had never been so quiet. 847 different species sat in absolute silence, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. The most powerful defensive system in galactic history had been disabled in 30 seconds by ships that were supposed to be primitive fusion-powered vessels. Ambassador Dae-Won Kim walked back to the central podium with the same calm steps he had used when he first entered the chamber. But now every eye in the amphitheater followed his movement with the careful attention given to someone who had just revealed they held the power to reshape galactic civilization. The silence stretched for long moments as Dae-Won looked up at the senior counselors on their ceremonial thrones. Counselor Velthara's crystalline body had lost its bright sparkle and now appeared dull and gray. Counselor Zephron's energy form flickered with colors that indicated confusion and fear. Counselor Rethmar's machine consciousness processed data streams that told him everything he thought he knew about galactic power structures was wrong. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Dae-Won began, his voice carrying easily through. "The vast chamber, humanity did not come here to conquer anyone. We did not come here to destroy the peace that has existed for 40,000 years. We came here to establish the terms of our coexistence with galactic civilization." He paused, letting his words settle before continuing. "What you have just witnessed was not an attack. It was a demonstration of capability designed to support the words we are about to speak. We want you to understand that when humanity says we seek to be treated as equals, we have the ability to enforce that request." President Hyunji Choi rose from her seat and joined Dae-Won at the podium. As the elected leader of Earth's unified government, she carried the authority to speak for all of humanity. The formal diplomatic robes she wore had been designed to show respect for galactic traditions, but now they seemed to carry a different message. This was not a primitive leader begging for acceptance. This was an equal partner announcing her terms for cooperation. The Galactic Council will recognize humanity as a Tier 1 species with full rights and privileges, President Hyunji announced. Her voice was firm and clear, carrying no hint of request or negotiation. "We will establish human trade routes throughout galactic space. We will be granted the right to colonize systems that are not already claimed by other species. Most importantly, we will participate as equal partners in all decisions that affect galactic civilization." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. No species in galactic history had ever made such demands. The traditional process required centuries of service and gradual advancement through the established hierarchy. New species started as protected observers and slowly earned limited rights over hundreds of years. Counselor Velthara found her voice first, though it lacked the commanding tone she had used earlier. "This is impossible. The council structure has existed for 40,000 years. It cannot be changed simply because one species demonstrates superior military technology. Admiral Sora Park's image appeared once again on the main holographic C display. Her expression remained professional, but there was steel in her voice when she responded. Counselor Velthara, your council structure exists because every species that came before us accepted it. Humanity chooses not to accept it. She gestured toward data displays that showed the current positions of human ships throughout the Ethros Prime system. Our demonstration today was limited to the immediate area around this station, but humanity has not sent only 12 ships to make this announcement. We have sent 12 fleets. New tactical displays appeared throughout the chamber, showing human ship positions near every major galactic population center. The Vorthak home system had 3 human fleets in nearby space. The Illumini energy fields were being monitored by advanced human sensors. The Nexari machine worlds found themselves under the watch of ships that their collective consciousness could not fully understand. Chief Engineer Taemin Lee's voice joined the transmission from his engineering station aboard the indomitable Spirit. For 2 centuries, humanity has been preparing for this moment. We did not develop our technology in isolation. We studied every major galactic civilization and learned their strengths and weaknesses. We know where your important systems are located. We know how your defenses operate. We know what it would take to protect you from hostile neighbors, and we know what it would take to defeat you if cooperation proves impossible. The implication was clear without being stated directly. Humanity had positioned itself to either defend galactic civilization or challenge it, depending on how the galaxy chose to respond to their demands. Dr. Young-Soo Han approached the podium carrying additional evidence from his research. The galaxy operates under the assumption that newer species are automatically inferior to older ones. This assumption exists because every species that achieved faster-than-light travel did so by discovering technologies that already existed. They reverse-engineered galactic systems and accepted their place as students learning from established teachers. He activated a holographic display showing the wreckage of the Vorthak survey ship that had crashed on Earth in 1847. Humanity took a different approach. We did not simply copy your technology. We studied it, understood it, and then improved upon it. While you assumed we were primitive students, we were actually becoming your technological superiors. The evidence was undeniable. The human ships surrounding galactic space represented technology that was generations ahead of anything in the Council's databases. Faster engines, more powerful weapons, better shields, and most importantly, tactical doctrine that treated conflict as an opportunity for innovation rather than something to be avoided. A new voice spoke from the assembled delegates. Counselor Tetheron of the Morphic Collective, representing one of the galaxy's oldest peaceful civilizations, rose from his seat with obvious difficulty. What guarantee do we have that humanity will not use this superior technology to dominate the rest of us? Power corrupts even the most well-intentioned species. Admiral Sora Park provided the answer that would echo through galactic history. The same guarantee you gave us when you assumed we were too primitive to matter, Counselor Tetheron. None. The difference is that we are telling you up front that we consider you our equals. You assumed we were not even worth consulting. President Hyun-ji Choi stepped forward to deliver humanity's final terms. We propose a new structure for the Galactic Council. Decisions will be made by consensus among all Tier 1 species with no single civilization holding permanent authority over others. Newer species will be granted protection and guidance, but they will also be given the opportunity to prove themselves worthy of advancement through contribution rather than simply through time served. She looked directly at the 3 senior counselors as she spoke her next words. This new structure will ensure that no species, no matter how old or powerful, becomes so comfortable with their authority that they forget to treat others with the respect that all intelligent life deserves. The vote that followed was unanimous. Not because every species agreed with humanity's proposals, but because no one dared to oppose them. The demonstrations of human military capability had made it clear that opposition would be both futile and dangerous. As the human delegation prepared to leave the great amphitheater, Ambassador Dae-Won Kim delivered humanity's final message to the galaxy. We look forward to working with all of you as partners in building a better future for galactic civilization. The universe is vast enough for all of us to thrive, as long as we remember that true peace comes from mutual respect between equals, not from the submission of the weak to the strong. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of automatic deference to ancient powers had ended, replaced by a new order where respect had to be earned through contribution rather than simply inherited through age. And across the galaxy, younger civilizations looked up at the stars, with new hope, knowing that the example humanity had set proved that any species willing to work for it could claim their place as equals among the stars.